things have changed in 20, 30 years of filmmaking. If we go back into the early 90s, films were shot with film, which means, we loaded the film magazine on a camera, we shot it, brought it out, changed it into a reel, into a changing bag, sent it off to the lab, done. As long as the courier got it to the lab and it got processed and didn't get screwed up, our footage was safe. Today, 99 or 95% of all films are shot digitally, which means instead of having these big giant magazines of film, we're using these SD cards, these different media formats, right? And we're recycling them, we're erasing them and reusing them. So what I want to talk about today is data management. How do we keep track of everything? How do I prevent myself from accidentally erasing a card before I download it, or losing a card, or just messing everything up? How am I going to prepare my footage to the point where I get to slide into post-production and edit and know exactly where everything is? Well, it's all about organization. So remember, time is money, right? So anytime I waste time, I'm spending money. So I want to be as efficient as possible. And also, again, remember that everything we put on the screen, all the money, the time, the energy, the sweat, everything you did to create this project or spent to put this project together, once it's shot, it's on these SD cards. And so that SD card is worth that much money. If you spent $10,000 on your film and it's all sitting on one SD card, that's a $10,000 SD card. So you have to look at it that way, that, wow, this is super valuable. I have to treat it with respect. I have to make sure this is properly taken care of. In fact, we have a term on set, we call it is the money in the bank. And when we properly download the cards and archive them and back it up, then we're like, yep, money's in the bank, we're safe. Up until that point, we don't know where that money is, if it's going to be destroyed or lost or what. So you want to kind of think of it that way. So in order to protect the assets, and when I say assets, that's what we call all the files, whether it's audio, sound files, video files, cinema files, whatever it is, these are collectively known as assets. And I want to protect the assets, I want to organize them. And so when we create our project and we want to prepare that project to be organized for the edit, we need to create a workflow. So this workflow will organize your media and project for when you're ready to edit. It'll also keep your assets together, which will prevent Premiere from searching and missing the files that can prevent you from finishing your project. The number one mistake people make, not just students, but people in general, is they download their cards, they put them on your desktop, they put them on an external drive, they put them all over the place, import them into Premiere, and then start editing. And then they save their project, and the next day when they open up Premiere's like, where's all the files? I don't know where anything is. Where did you put it? Because you may have connected an external drive to it, and then when you're done, well, you forgot to plug the drive in. You may have put files on your desktop and then moved them someplace else later, and now Premiere doesn't know where it is. The thing about Premiere is that it does not touch your video files, your audio files, whatever files. All it does is when you import them into Premiere is make reference points to them to know where they are. So if you have stuff put in one place and then you close Premiere and then you move those files someplace else, the next time you open Premiere up, it has no idea where they are. And so this can be a nightmare for editing. And here's my, truth story from prior students. I had one student in one of my classes, Mr. Know-It-All. He's like, I'm showing him my whole workflow. And he's like, yeah, man, no, I'm a professional. I've got my own way of doing things. Thank you very much. I'm like, okay. The day before the assignment's due in the lab, he is freaking flipping out. He's like, I don't know where anything is. I can't find anything. Something's wrong. I got a virus. The computer is malfunctioning in the lab. My whole project's gone. And so we go to look it up and try to figure out what went wrong. It turns out, no, he didn't listen, obviously, and he put files on the desktop, he put them in other places, and then he logged out of the lab computer. The lab computers, every time you log out, rewipe the drives and start all over again. It's a piece of software that protects the computers from people putting malware and viruses on. So all his stuff, he just left it on the desktop and edited. And then when he came back the next day to edit again, it's all gone. So everything he did was lost, and he had to go back and restart from scratch the day before the assignment was due. And total truth. And this guy was one of the students. He's been around in the department for a while. He just didn't want to listen. So moral of the story here is, and I'm not saying that I'm the all truth to everything. I'm just telling you from my experience, from the experience of working in the industry for years, what we do and what we're trying to avoid. So that's the whole point about having a workflow in data management. So if you follow along with my workflow, I guarantee that you won't have any problems. This is the same kind of workflow that I've been using for myself about 10 years, maybe even more. I don't even know anymore. But I guarantee you, I can go onto my archive drives, find one of my projects that I edited maybe 15 years ago, load it up into Premiere, and it will load up because I know where everything is. I have it perfectly organized. One of the advantages of coming up with a workflow is that you just come up with something that works for you. And so again, I'm going to show you a stripped down version of what's done in most production companies, most post-production facilities. So, and it's kind of, and this is basically what everybody does. And so if you follow along with this, you'll be fine. You can take this idea and modify it for your own use down the road. Doesn't matter to me. All that really matters is that you come up with a system that works and understand the benefit of it. So by coming up with a workflow, you use the same workflow over and over again every time you do a project. This way it becomes just part of your process. And so down the road, when you're trying to figure out where something is, you know where it is because you do the same thing over and over again. Now, granted, you may modify it down the road and evolve it. That's quite okay. But it's still kind of having the same concept. Super important because may not be that big of a deal with like a student project where you've got, maybe 20, 30, 40, 50 clips and some audio. But imagine having a television series where you've got 10 episodes in the pipeline. You have all your footage on a giant server in a post-production facility. There may be 10,000 video files on there. And so if I don't have a structure, a formula, a protocol for how to organize everything, one editor might do one thing. And one of the things that happens is there's not just one editor working on all the shows. Different editors come and go. So some may start one part of the show, another might jump to another segment. If I start one thing and I have everything organized one way, and then I hand it off to another editor and we're not on the same, page as far as how organization to go, that editor is going to not know where anything is or not be able to find anything. And that means lost time, because now instead of spending how much an hour for that editor to edit, I'm spending on that editor time of him trying to find stuff or her trying to find stuff, and I just wasted money. So there's a lot of reasons to have a workflow and data management, but data management is super important nowadays because we're dealing with file-based stuff. There's no more film, there's no more videotapes or discs or whatever. It's all file-based. So that means I have to find a place to safely store my files so they don't get lost. I need to make sure they're properly organized and labeled between cameras so I know where things are. And I also need to confirm that the data has been successfully downloaded from the files on the SD cards before I erase them and reuse them. So like I said before, on my Red camera, the media cards that Red sells at the time, they were like $1,500 a pop. So I couldn't afford to just buy them and fill them up and buy more. I have like five of them, and I have to cycle through them and erase them as I go because I just can't. It was never meant to be that way. So I need to confirm that stuff's backed up. So there are, software out there you could buy that actually help you do that job. So for example, let me show you. This is a piece of software that's called ShotPut Pro. And this is one of the main tools that we use to download on the fly. So I'm not just gonna get the card, pop it in the card reader and drag and drop it to a drive. because I don't know if it copies it over. When it copies it over, there's no way for me to know if there's an error in duplication, because the finder is not going to say, hey, there's a problem here. Your bytes got screwed up or something didn't work out right. So I'm not going to do that. This software does that for me. So as I bring SD cards in and they populate this little panel right here, I'm going to drag and drop them here. And not only is the software going to copy them into a folder structure that I design, but it's also going to check and confirm that every 0 and 1 was properly copied over. And if there's a problem, it will put a red flag up and warn me, so I know not to wipe that card. Super important. It's so important that in most movies and TV shows, you can't get your insurance, your bonds for production, unless you show proof of your documentation of how you're downloading stuff. So basically they're requiring you to use some type of software like this in order to download before they even allow you to have insurance. And you can't really shoot without insurance. So that's one of the reasons why. So the other thing is I can make each one of these things down here is a template or a preset that I created for how I will download the stuff. So if I go here, for example, I've got Ice Wrap. So this is from the Ice Cold Blood show. If I double click this, now this isn't going to be a lesson much on here more than me just showing you. I've created a whole folder structure here that's going to show me exactly what folders I'm going to make, what I'm going to label them, how I'm going to label them, how they're going to automatically be labeled as new pieces, new media comes into the system. And then down here is where I'm going to back it up. So if you look here, I've got 2 hard drives, 2 volumes, 2 separate physical hard drives that I'm writing to when I back up. So not only am I not just writing to a hard drive, but I'm writing to 2. And sometimes I'll write to 3 drives. And the beauty about something like this software is it's not just making a copy and then a copy. It's literally pulling the data off the SD card or whatever media you're using and cloning it on the fly to 3 separate locations at once, so that just for sake of safety, if one of those drives was failing and I didn't know it and it failed, I have 2 other drives backed up. So we never, ever, ever on a big production back up to a single drive. We always back up to a minimum of 2, most likely 3. And we back up consecutively, so that I'm not going to back up to one drive and then clone that to another drive, because just in case something went wrong with that drive, it could clone over and be a problem. So with software like this, it will automatically make 3 copies of every SD card as on the fly as it's happening. So it's a big, important part of creating a data workflow that if anybody is doing anything legit in the industry, any real bigger productions, you want to think about investing in this software. And now, in fact, it's expensive, but not highly expensive. It's about $200, or you can pay for it monthly for about $20 a month, depending on your needs. So there's a couple other ones out there, but this is the one that most people use in the industry.
Are we expected to use this?
No, I'm just showing you from a professional point of view. You guys are going to drag and drop. So I'm not expecting people to invest money in something like this. Right, I'm showing you how it's done in the real world.
How much does something like that usually cost?
About $200 to own it, $300 to own it, or you can subscribe to it for $20 a month. Everybody's jumped on the subscription bandwagon. So if I go to their website, let's see. So here's the company. If you're curious about it, Imagine Products. They make Shot Put Pro. They make a bunch of products that are all catering towards the film and television industry. Not much to see here, but you basically can click on what you want and then basically buy it. So, oh, actually, its price has gone down, I guess. So it's $149 to own it. 30-day rental for $50. $49 a year if you want to just kind of rent it, quote unquote. But they make that. They also make another piece of software that checks and makes sure everything's proper. They make transcoders, tons of different things, but most of their stuff is catering towards this whole workflow that I'm talking about. So this is, imagine, I'll type it in the, so I think I told you guys a story of my first time with digital cameras, how I lost half a day of footage. So this is the lesson learned from that. So now, like, this is what I use. I'm never ever getting caught in that scenario again where it's, you know, it's something happens to it. And so on a bigger production, someone's job is to, the DIT will be doing all this work. On smaller productions, even like some of the stuff that I do, if I'm doing like a small crew thing, I may do this, or one of the ACs may do that. So we may not have time to have to sit there and watch and babysit it. So this is where using a piece of software like this comes in handy, because I can put the card in, tell it to back it up, come back 15, 20 minutes later, and if there's a problem, it's going to tell me. And I know, oh, okay, I better put that card to a side, or you know, I don't have to worry about it being lost. But if I didn't have this and I'm just dragging and dropping, if there was a problem and the finder and the computer software, you know, the OS didn't acknowledge that, I may think everything's great and then accidentally erase it, the card, before I know it's properly backed up. So that's one of the advantages. The other thing that I do, and this is something I'm going to strongly recommend that you guys do. So most likely in this little short that you guys are shooting, you won't fill up 2 cards. You're probably just going to use 1 card, right? So you're probably going to be safe as far as worrying about backing up cards and erasing them. But if you did come to a point where you had to erase your card to use it again in your camera, you can drag and drop and download like we just talked about. But one of the things you should do, and this is something you really need to get into the habit of doing, is to quickly check all your files to make sure they're there. And that means simply, if I'm in the Finder, I'm just going to do a quick preview and hit the space bar and play to make sure each file plays. And then once I do that, once I know, like, physically that, okay, yep, I've physically seen each shot playing, then I'm going to say that card is safe to erase and move on. And in fact, even though we use this software, ShotPut Pro, to download, we still will physically check each shot to make sure it's there before we erase the original SD card or media card. So it's just a backup, just to confirm. So you think of 2 different things that are protecting you here. That software telling me there's a problem, and if that says it's all good, then when I go and physically examine each file on the hard disk, knowing they're there, then I know for sure everything's there. And so you may just back up to one hard drive, and that's okay at this level, but then you probably want to back it up someplace else just to be safe. And then you can always erase the backup later on. That's kind of what happens. We have 3 drives, we back them up to 3 drives. And, you know, if we're on the road somewhere, if we're on, you know, out of town, when we finish the shoot of the 3 drives, 1 drive gets FedExed back to post, 2nd drive goes with me, and then the other drive goes with the producer. And just in case the plane crashes, we've got the footage back there in case somebody gets mugged or something happens. Having it in 3 locations as we travel makes it safe. We know for sure we're not going to lose the footage, because again, that footage is the cost of that footage. What's on that hard drive is all the money that was spent on the production to get us there, to shoot it, the locations, you name everything. So it's that valuable.
If one of the drives, like let's say one of the drives does like just stop working, when you only have 2 left, do you make another backup to make it 3 again?
Yeah. So in the professional world, what will happen is we'll FedEx, if we're out of on location, we'll FedEx the drive before we fly out. They usually get it. They'll immediately back it up to their servers in their post-production. So by the time we're said and done, the footage is going to be maybe in 3 or 4 locations at once. And then they'll take the original drives and recycle them, just erase them and use them again for something else. But they usually means the footage should be in at least 2 places at once, just to be safe. And like, and then for long-term storage, like for example, can't see it here, but the little black box next to those keyboards, that's a server, and that's got a redundant RAID system on it. And so I just, once I'm done editing and everything's done, I move all the footage and the projects off to that server where there's just one copy of it, but the whole system's designed to be redundant. So if some part of it fails, I can rebuild it and not worry about losing it. So there's also long-term storage you can think of. And again, that's not for you guys to worry about because, you know, it's just a class project. Unless though some of you become super successful, famous filmmakers, right? Then they're going to want to see the gold that you made in this class to prove how amazing you were just in the beginning. So then that footage might become incredibly valuable. So here is a guide that I created for media workflow. If you can't click on this, it'll come up and you should be able to download it. Let me see, I've got, close this out. I've got a version here we can look at that's a little bit bigger. So let's take a look at it. So again, follow these instructions, you should be okay. So two things we're achieving with this workflow up front. One, we're making sure our footage is backed up someplace safe. And two, we're preparing for edit. So here, and this is what I always do, I always prepare for edit while I'm in the field to make sure it. So what you're gonna do here is you're gonna make a folder. It's called your name, assignment name. So if I was gonna do this, I'm gonna call this, I'm gonna make a new folder, I'm gonna right click, make a new folder here. I'm gonna call it action scene. I'm gonna call it Dylan's action scene. That's going to be this root folder here. And once I make that, I'm going to double click it, open it up. And I'm going to make 3 folders in there. I'm going to call one media. Another one project files. And then the third one, masters. So now I'm going to go down into media. I'm going to double click media and go down here. And obviously you see we're going to make more folders. So now I'm going to make one that says camera files. Now I'm going to make one that says audio. And then the last one that says graphics. So if I just drop these down like this, so I can see the whole structure going on in here. So once I shoot my project, right, I'm going to get an SD card. I'm going to pop it in my computer, and let's just say I'm going to use these raw files as an example. This is my SD card. I'm going to pop it up and like, oh, there's all my files. But instead of still shots, they're going to be motion. I'm going to go over here where it says camera files. Now here's something that's important. And again, this, you know, how you want to do this is up to you, but I'm just showing you the way we do it in the professional industry, because most of the time we're shooting on multiple day productions. So we're not just shooting for one day. So first day of production, each day of production, I'm going to have a separate folder that I put all of my video files into from the camera. And this way I'm organizing it by production day. And so this is done for a couple of reasons. A, it's going to be done so I know exactly what day I shot what on and where it's at. B, if we're sending stuff to post over a long period of time, they can come back and say, hey, we're missing files from day 2. Do you know where it is? Well, yeah, it's in this folder in day 2. You can find it. So this is kind of a structure that we use. So let's say we shot today. Today is the 20th. And I'm going to copy, this is all the 20th footage. I'm going to make a folder. And again, remember, I'm in the media folder in camera files. I'm going to right click and make a new folder. And I'm going to call this camera A. So let's say, well, if you just shot with one camera, well, it's just going to be camera A. And so I'm going to go camera A, and we kind of do underscore. I'm going to put the date that I shot. So today is going to be 11/20. -20 -21. And then I'm going to put another underscore in, and I'm going to put 01, and that's for day 1. So now I know the date that I shot, what camera it is, and what day of production. Once that's done, I'm going to double click. I'm going to go over here, hit Command. Oh, no, I don't want that. Go away, photos. Hit Command A, and it's going to drag them over. And there, it happened quick. So once I copy it from the SD card, I'm immediately going to eject the SD card and get rid of it. Because what I don't want to do is get confused and start editing off the SD card. If I do that, I'm going to make my life miserable later on, because I'm going to forget to put that SD card in. Also, the SD card is not really designed for working with editing. It's more of just an acquisition format. I want to get it onto a card. I want to get it onto a hard drive. So every day that I shoot, so if I shoot the next day, so if I go back here to camera files and I'm like, okay, well, we shot today, we're going to shoot tomorrow. Well, I'm going to make a new folder for tomorrow and put that cam A with the date. So 11/21/21, and I'll put a little underscore there and call it day 2, and so forth. And so, you know, this might not be a big deal for your project, but I've been on shows where we hit day 100. We had 100 separate days of footage on a RAID system. And so by having everything organized by date, I don't have to worry if I have everything in one folder, everything just piled in there, and Post calls me up and says, hey, you guys messed up. We don't have the footage from day 20. I can go, whoa, hang on, and go look on my backup copy and go, no, here's all the footage, and here's the report that says we sent it to you. So somewhere it's lost on your system. Or maybe we made a mistake and we're like, okay, well, we'll put a copy on and send it to you on the next shipment. So by having it all organized, we know where everything is. Super important. So that's going to be just for footage. So what about audio? What's audio? Well, audio could be if we captured audio on location, right? And we used a dual system and didn't have it recorded in camera, but had it recorded on a recorder. Well, I put the audio there. If I'm actually going to grab music and put music in my, my project, I'm going to put it in there. Basically, what I'm going to do in this folder is put every single thing that I want to use for the edit is going to go in here. And I'm not going to bring it into Premiere until after I put it in this folder structure. If I import it first with Premiere and then drag it in here, I've just defeated the purpose. Next time I open up Premiere, it's going to go, hey, where's the footage? So all media is going to go here. That's camera files, audio files, graphics. So if I have special Photoshop, graphics I created, I'm going to put them there. If I may even put another folder in this media that says archival footage or stock footage. Maybe I have clips from YouTube I downloaded. I'm going to put them all here. The goal, what you want to do is put every single thing you think you're going to use into some file structure underneath this root name of your project. So all the media is going to go here. What's going to go here? Well, when we get into Premiere soon, I'm going to show you, we're going to tell Premiere to save everything, its project files, into this folder. So now all the project files, that means the timelines, it means any render files, anything that Adobe's going to make or save, we're going to tell it to go here. And then finally, this last one here, masters. Well, what is that? Well, that's going to be when I render out my timeline. So when I'm done and I'm like, okay, I'm going to render out a 4K ProRes master copy of my footage of my timeline, I'm going to save it right here. And so because I use this same workflow for every single project, if somebody goes that, 3 years from now goes, hey, that project you guys did last year or that, a few years ago, I'm like, yeah, do you have a copy of the master? Oh yeah, let me find it. And I just go find this folder on my server. I know in masters, there's going to be my master copy of it. You guys starting to see the theme here? So by being completely organized, I don't have to worry where anything is. I can, once I'm done with this whole project and it's all in this folder right here, I can take this folder, put it on any hard drive, put it anywhere I want, and then come back 5 years from now, reopen it up, and Premiere will find everything because it knows everything it needs is in this folder that's somewhere in here that it's kept track of. If I instead put video files here, I put audio files here, have a USB thumb drive where I have other stuff, in the end, when it tries to find all that stuff, it's not going to know where it is and it's going to be lost. So by having everything in a folder structure like this, you're saving yourself the headache of losing stuff, of going, why can't Premiere find this? Before it could, and now it can't. This is going to save you lots of frustration. Now, somebody might ask, well, I know, isn't there a way that Premiere can, as you import into its, a project, it copies the footage over? Yeah, there actually is a function that allows you to do that, but I strongly recommend not using that. And I'll talk about it more later on, but the main reason why is because what it's going to do is put every single thing in one folder under Premiere. And that means you won't have any separation of audio, graphics, camera files, anything. And it becomes, going back later on to find stuff becomes a mess. So I never use it. I do everything manually, and I strongly recommend that you guys do everything manually. So again, media folder will contain all your assets, project file, Premiere Pro project, masters will contain all this. Here's kind of, again, the rundown of what everything is going to be. So same deal, step by step of how to label this, how to organize what I just talked about. Pretty self-explanatory. So this whole concept here, you should adopt it for any project you're working on. I mean, that's the key to being successful. The key to being organized is knowing where everything is. And if you just put everything in one folder somewhere and you'll like, yeah, I'll sort it out later on, that later on never happens. And you just be getting a bigger and bigger mess. And then this greatly helps you out later on when you start doing bigger projects. Once you have more than 20 reels or folders of files from different days, you really need to be organized where it is. In fact, I'll make another project folder, I'll make another media folder here for proxy or low res versions if I need to make dailies. There's all sorts of different levels of stuff, ways we need to manage this data or these files once we start the edit project on more advanced, complicated productions. But for you guys, this is pretty much as far as you need to go. Sometimes when I'm doing a project, I will make a folder like this, and then I will actually have, pre-production folder here where I put everything in there. So my whole thing is when I'm done with this project, or even while I'm in this project, everything is in one folder where I know where it all is. And then when I archive it and I put it away later on, it's all there. If I need to go back and look up some information or see the releases I got from all my actors, or location permits, all that stuff, it's all organized. So I don't have to play the hunt game later on if I need it for some reason. If I happen to get into a film festival and they're like, hey, can we see all your releases and your location releases and also all your licensing deals with any type of art that's on your walls? And I'm like, yeah, I had it, but I don't know where it is. But let me get back to you on that. They're going to look at you like, okay, well, this person's not that professional when it comes to filmmaking. So maybe this is not a good idea to make a deal with them. But if I'm like, yeah, it's right here because I got everything organized, then it just makes me look that much better when I'm trying to market myself as a filmmaker. So this is all kind of, think of it as the housekeeping, the behind the scenes stuff that you need to do to kind of get this task of filmmaking done. People who are just put everything everywhere and hope for the best, they don't have long careers. Most good filmmakers, directors should be highly organized. If they're not going to have a long career because it gets just super overwhelming.
What would be your suggestion if you want to organize, I don't know, even further, like if you want to like if you have multiple actors and you go, oh, here's all of their takes, here's all of this scene's takes, or something like that.
I would not do that. I
Okay.
would keep to this structure, because what we're going to learn once we start into Premiere is that once we get into Premiere, into the bins of Premiere, into where the data, the shots and clips goes, there's another area of organization there. And that's where we're going to organize everything, because that's where we're going to access it. Think of this way. Think of this as a vault. This is where I'm putting everything. I know it's all my camera day one footage is in here. I'm never going to go in there and erase it or change it or do anything. And that's one other important thing that I want to bring to your attention is I'm not going to selectively pick and choose from the SD card. Let's say I shot, for one shot, I shot 8 takes. I'm not going to just pick the take I think is good and copy it and erase the rest. Everything gets copied over. You literally just drag and drop from one to the other. And in fact, on more professional cinema cameras, there's a whole folder structure within the SD card that the camera makes. And I'm going to everything that's on an SD card, regardless of what the folders are, I'm going to grab it all and drag it to here and not touch it. Because it's really, I can always later on not use it. But if I accidentally don't grab the right shot and then I recycle the card and it's like, oh man, I thought that was the shot I wanted, but it wasn't. It's too late. So here, it all comes as one whole. Don't even select, don't pick and choose, just grab everything. That's pretty much how we work. Because once you get into Premiere or any editor, there's plenty of places to categorize and subcategorize and make subclips and break everything down to what takes you want. And we're going to learn how to do that. Linnea says, is it possible to shoot in low res, then render in 4 or 8 or 12K? Yeah, I mean, you can, but I don't know what that's going to get you, because pretty much when you're at a lower resolution and then you render at a higher resolution, even if you scale it up, it's just going to still be at that resolution. And so you're going to pixelate it the further up you go. Usually it's the opposite. Usually we will shoot like in 6K or 8K and then work in a 4K timeline. And then we scale it down to give us better resolution in our timeline or perceived resolution. What happens if you do not have an SD card port on your laptop? Well, you probably got to get one. If you can't get one, you can borrow one from the school. But if you can't do that, then you probably can get a super cheap one on Amazon. Probably can find one for like $5 if you had to. Pretty much anybody who's doing anything in photography or cinematography, you should have an SD card reader. In fact, let me see. Here we go. Amazon special right here. It basically will have every format that you need and can use: mini SD, regular SD, compact flash, whatever. I think this was $8. And it was Unitech is the name of the company. So these are fairly reliable, but yeah, you just want to have something. There's no way you're going to be able to edit or do anything without it. You could, some cameras, the only way around it is some cameras you could plug a USB cable directly into the camera, and then using their software, you can download it to your computer. But I would just say that's the last resort. If you can get an SD card reader, and like I said, they're fairly cheap, I would do that first.